Okay, here I am. I'm beginning layer 2 on these 4, and I'm pulling up 4 randomly to begin working on them again, and I'm pretty much with the same palette. I haven't really changed it up much because I'm not ready to yet. I just feel like I just needed to put more on. Second layer, it's still early days. So I'm just defining places that I'm wanting to do more. So this is when the push and pull begins for me. It's a push and pull between too much and not enough. And I'm trying to find a happy balance between the two. So like I said, loosely, most of my paintings have a kind of feel of wild garden about them. So as you can see, my color palette is really leaning into that. And my strokes and marks, not so much so, but I guess at some point they will. I'm just trying to get some cool layers. So when I think about composition, I think of it in a couple of different ways. I think about what the painting's going to look like from far away. So what is going to be my, I'm a graphic designer, so what's going to be my headline story? What, when you look at it, where do I want you to look at first? And then I look at it in terms of when you come closer, where do I want you to go? What stories do I want you to look at? And how can I send you around the painting in an interesting way? Now that's where eventually I want to get to with composition, but right now I'm just really trying to put the history there. I'm trying to put some interesting stuff into the background so that when I come in on the small stories, people are like, oh, look at that interesting piece in between here, and how did that happen? That's kind of where what I'm doing when I'm putting history onto a piece, creating these interesting color combinations, marks. They're all me because I know they're all the way that I put paint down onto canvas. At the moment, I'm kind of exploring this idea of having separate things going on in a painting with space around them, white space, even if that white space is made up at the end. So you might see me kind of grabbing a color, say this yellow, and putting it somewhere on its own, almost in its own little spot, without going too much all over, as opposed to me doing, this kind of thing, which on the early layers I'd probably do as well. But I kind of am loving the idea of doing these separate kind of color areas and seeing how differently it might form a painting. That's like one of my curiosities. And it sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't, but it's something that I'm thinking about loosely. I think that's the best way to put it. A few of the questions that I was asked. One of them was about, how much pre-planning do you do on an abstract piece? Are you, going in there with a goal? And I'm really not. And yet, I guess, given that I'm sort of working on a series, or I haven't stopped working on a series of the wildflowers, to some degree, I guess that's the type of thing that I'm creating. So I can't say completely that there's no plan in sight, that at some point it might start looking like that I might start pushing it there, but I'm not really thinking about that a lot when I'm putting my layers down. I'm just knowing that I'm wanting to create enough interest for myself. And it'll probably be, I think on a lot of these, it could probably be the next layer that I'll start to be a little bit more conscious of, okay, what's going on now and where do I want this to head? Where do I want, like I was saying before with the composition, where do I want people's eyes to go? What's the hierarchy here? Do I need some darker colors? Because as you can see, in a lot of this, I've taken off a lot of the black that I was working with. I like that kind of purpley color, by the way. That's coming out of that quinacridone magenta and black. So there's not a lot of the contrast, like, you know, there's a lot of color. And, you know, as I'm sure you know, color is not the first thing we look at. It's the contrast that draws us. It's the difference between the dark and the light, the real heavy contrast. That's where our eyes go. So I will pull that back in at some point on the layers, and maybe in the next layer I'll really start looking at that deeply. But right now I'm just getting lots and lots and lots of stuff happening. Really love those dark purpley colors. So I'm going to need to get some more magenta happening, which I'll just grab. I've got a very fluidy magenta. From Golden. I'm not able to get it in the thick and the heavy bodied, unfortunately. So also I've got the Liquitex. I'll put some of that on there as well. So I've got the heavy body and the liquid as they work differently together. I'll put some more of my brilliant magenta on there. Something different. And I'll work with some of that and the black to get those yummy, deeper, purpley colors that I love so much. But as soon as I see that, I think, okay, that's good. That's the darker value that I was talking about before. So now that I've got it on my palette, I'm really kind of going to go for it. Get some of that in there. This one's looking like a dog's breakfast. You know, and that's something else that I'm often asked is, you know, the frustration that comes when it feels like the painting is getting away from you. You know, you start off and you love it, and you're thinking, oh, this is so cool. It's just this beautiful white space, and I'm putting color on, and I love it. And then at some point it just starts going, oh, so very wrong. And it's a necessary place, as I keep saying to a lot of my students. It's like, don't be afraid of that place, because you've got to create that to get somewhere else. It can't always be in this beautiful zone. Paintings go through lots of different stages, kind of like we do, I guess. You know, we're not always our pretty selves. We're not always looking our best, and paintings can't either. They've got to go through those ugly times in order to find, I mean, this one's just such a mess. And often in my classes, I'll find, you know, as I'm walking around and people are creating different things, I'll leave someone for a second and go, and they grab the white and they go all the way over the top because they don't like any of it. And it's such a shame because, you know, it's in all those, the reason why we do lots of layers is to get to that place, that that ugly place, but the place that has lots to respond to, you know, like these aren't anywhere yet. You know, I could just be thinking, what am I doing? You know, here I am on camera showing how bad my paintings can look at times. But I know, or I trust, that this is just part of the process, and that the ugly teenager phase is somewhere that I don't mind my painting sitting for a while. I know it's a part of my process. I know pretty much every painting I've ever painted has gone through this. So I know I can find a way to bring it back. As you can see, now that I've gone to the dark, I've now swapped out to the light to get some more light values on there. Because it's that play between the light values and the dark values that will really get this contrast going on. Different brush, which creates different kind of marks. Someone commented on the fact that a lot of my brush marks are really obvious and they like that. And that's kind of with these harder brushes, you can get a mark that you can see. I like that sometimes, I don't like it always, but again, I like those sort of marks also blended with ones that are the color that's completely markless. It's just a color. I do love clearing space in paintings with these light white. It's never actually white, it's always blended with so many other colors in the palette. Sometimes I'll bring more in something like that green. Okay, I need a little bit of green, why don't I bring that in here? And sometimes it'll be more yellowy. I always have a little bit of the black there to dirty it up because I really do like this kind of dirty colors. And see if I put it on really thickly, it's this gorgeous kind of just has this real opaqueness to it. Makes everything else around it really stand out. I'll do that again somewhere. It doesn't work as well on that color. Just seeing how it works with all the different colors. Beautiful next to the dark. Bringing back in the pencil to get some different things, different shapes, different. I really love pencil marks in my paintings. They add just another kind of dimension. Go over the top with them sometimes, but because they're so fine, you can really loosen up and do something interesting because they're just so light that you only really see them. I guess this is what you call a quiet story. So that's quite a bit. For a second layer, I put quite a bit of layers on there, so I'm going to leave it here and let these dry.